The presidency offered no honeymoon. A tradition as old as the nation itself dictated that the day after the inaugural ball, or in this case, the wedding, was a return to duty. Aden Hayes found the custom archaic and inhumane, a rule he desperately wanted to change. But then he considered that any change would only benefit his successors, and the thought of others enjoying a luxury he was denied soured the idea entirely. If he had to suffer, so would they. After the morning press briefing, the cabinet meeting convened in the Roosevelt Room. Aden, seated at the head of the long mahogany table, fought against a wave of drowsiness as his Secretary of State, Thompson, detailed the unresolved issues from the morning's agenda. Thompson cleared his throat, indicating that the governor of Arizona had submitted a formal request for increased National Guard funding along the border. Aden asked for the governor's rationale. The official report cited rising tensions and the need for preemptive measures. Aden's response was tinged with weariness. He suggested the governor's true motivation was fear, not foresight. He mused aloud that the man had likely been spooked by the recent impeachment of his colleague in Texas. Having witnessed that political downfall, the Arizona governor now understood the critical importance of resources and control, hence the bold request for federal funds. In the United States, a governor was the highest authority in a state. Arizona, a vast and critical border state, had been under this particular governor's control for years, allowing him to amass significant local power. The federal government had to handle him with care. The secretary asked if the president intended to deny the request. Aden considered this for a moment, tapping a pen against a notepad. He acknowledged that the governor's intentions might not be malicious. Perhaps it was just a case of seeing another's misfortune and becoming anxious about his own. An outright denial could be seen as a provocation. To maintain stability, a gesture of goodwill was necessary, but not one that would fully empower him. The tapping of the pen stopped abruptly. Aden instructed his cabinet to have the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security collaborate on a revised figure. He made it clear they were to provide some funding, but not the full amount requested. Secretary Thompson nodded and stepped back, replaced by the head of FEMA. She reported on the severe drought that had plagued Kansas last year, which had now escalated into a full-blown crisis with the onset of winter. Displaced families were facing starvation. The president's brow furrowed. He immediately authorized the dispatch of emergency supplies and declared a 3-year moratorium on federal agricultural taxes for the affected counties in Kansas. Next, the White House counsel stepped forward to report on a more trivial matter. The eldest son of the Secretary of Commerce had gotten into a physical altercation with a prominent senator's youngest son at a nightclub in Georgetown. The source of their dispute was reportedly a popular social media influencer. He noted that both young men were from powerful families, and their coarse behavior reflected poorly on their parents and the administration, urging the president to take strong disciplinary action. Compared to matters of state security and natural disasters, this was of little consequence. Aden's attention drifted. He discreetly opened a secure messaging app on a tablet and typed a short note. "What are you up to, my love?" He handed the tablet to his personal aide, Sam, who understood the implicit instruction and quietly left the room. Aden refocused on the counsel, asking him to repeat who had been fighting. He feigned surprise, remarking that he thought the two young men were close friends, having grown up together in the same elite D.C. circles. The counsel confirmed this with a grim nod, lamenting how a once strong friendship had been destroyed over a fleeting infatuation, leading to insults and violence. Aden yawned, pretending to miss the counsel's sanctimonious tone. He inquired who had thrown the first punch. After a moment's hesitation, the counsel admitted that, according to witnesses, the senator's son had initiated the confrontation. He added, however, that the senator's son claimed he had only shoved the other man lightly, whereas the secretary's son had retaliated with considerable force. Aiden felt a surge of amusement, feeling less like a president and more like a high school principal mediating a playground squabble. He suggested it was likely just youthful angst rather than a permanent falling out. The council protested, reminding the president that both men were over 21 and well past the age of childish excuses. Aiden raised a hand to placate him, assuring him that a lack of punishment was not his intention. Since neither individual held a government position, he could only penalize their fathers. He decreed that the Secretary of Commerce and the senator would have their salaries garnished for 6 months and be personally fined $50,000 each, with the funds to be donated to the disaster relief efforts in Kansas. An hour of this dragged on before the last item on the agenda was addressed. The June rain, the July wind. Nothing in the world felt as sweet as the collective murmur of his cabinet members saying, "Thank you, Mr. President," signaling the end of the meeting. Nothing except for his beautiful husband, of course. The moment the door closed, Aiden's formal posture dissolved. He slumped into his high-backed leather chair, a profound exhaustion settling over him, feeling more drained than if he had spent the day campaigning. But his spirits lifted when Sam returned from the residence, carrying a tablet with Leo's reply. After the wedding, Leo was supposed to have moved into the traditional first spouse's suite of offices and rooms in the East Wing. But Aiden couldn't stand the thought of sleeping in separate parts of the White House. He had insisted Leo remain with him in the presidential residence, even moving him from the guest suite into the master bedroom. Such an arrangement was unheard of, even among Washington's power couples who often maintained separate residences. The president and the first gentleman, however, lived like any ordinary young couple, sharing a bed every night. Leo's reply was a concise 2 words: hatching eggs. Aiden smiled. It was their inside joke for the clutch of rare snake eggs Leo was carefully incubating in a terrarium. No wonder the message was so brief. He desperately wanted to go back and watch Leo with his eggs, but a mountain of intelligence briefings sat on his desk. Briefings, the bane of his existence, the eternal shackles of his office. He stared at the stack of folders, every fiber of his being resisting. He decided to take a short nap first and deal with them later. Sam gently reminded him that if he procrastinated until evening, Leo would not be pleased. Aiden hesitated, suggesting he could wait until Leo was asleep and then review them quietly. But Sam, under strict instructions from Leo, had to press the issue, pointing out that these were urgent matters flagged by the National Security Council. Leo arrived at the Oval Office and asked Sam, who was standing guard outside, about the president's whereabouts. The aide's weary smile told him everything. Inside, he found Aiden slumped over the resolute desk, fast asleep. His face was pillowed on his arm, which rested on a top-secret directive, a pen still loosely held in his hand. Leo carefully slid the document out from under his arm. It was a covert order for Sean, the head of a clandestine intelligence agency, to deploy operatives to Arizona to discreetly monitor the governor. A handwritten note at the bottom suggested Sean could also take a trip to the northern border to reconnect with an old contact there. The last few words of the directive were scrawled and nearly illegible, a clear sign that Aiden had fought off sleep until the very last second. Leo took off his cashmere coat and draped it gently over Aiden's shoulders. Aiden awoke to the feeling of pins and needles in his arm. He opened his eyes and saw Leo standing before the desk, pen in hand, writing something. Fresh from their wedding festivities, Leo was still often dressed in exquisitely tailored designer suits that made him look radiant and impossibly elegant. Aiden propped his head up with his hand, a slow smile spreading across his face as he watched his husband. He finally asked if the eggs had hatched yet, wondering if they were princes or princesses. Leo glanced at him, a flicker of amusement in his eyes, and replied that the little vipers would need a few more days. He told Aiden to go sleep on the couch in the adjoining study if he was tired, adding that sleeping at his desk was bad for his back. Aiden waved it off, stretching his shoulders. He was used to it, he said, then asked what Leo was looking at. It was the rest of the security briefings. Leo offered to review the remaining documents so Aiden could get some rest. Aiden feigned reluctance. He pushed off from the desk, his ergonomic chair gliding smoothly across the floor until he was directly in front of Leo. He'd had the chair custom-made with silent, high-performance wheels, allowing him to navigate the Oval Office with ease. He told Leo he'd just had a realization. Leo, standing, was a few inches taller and looked down at him, waiting for him to continue. Aiden grinned. He said that Leo and the briefings had something in common. The more he looked at them, the sleepier he got. Leo's expression remained placid. He suggested that if Aiden spent a little less time with him at night, he might gain an extra half-hour of sleep each day and avoid dozing off in the Oval Office. Aiden feigned an epiphany, declaring it a brilliant idea worth trying. Leo paused, a slight frown creasing his brow as he added that Aiden shouldn't reduce their time together too much. The hint of vulnerability was so endearing that Aiden couldn't resist. He asked for a kiss. Leo's heart gave a little flutter. He lowered his gaze, his voice calm as he told Aiden to just kiss him without all the unnecessary talk. Aiden laughed softly. Too lazy to stand, he wrapped an arm around Leo's waist, pulling him down until their faces were level. He tilted his head up and captured Leo's lips. The kiss was a brief but potent revival. When it ended, Leo was settled in his lap, breathing unevenly with a faint blush on his cheeks, looking entirely vulnerable and distracting him from any thoughts of work. Yet, the sad reality of his job was that even in the most heated moments, duty called. Aiden held Leo from behind and resignedly picked up his pen to finish the directive. As Leo's composure returned, he asked if Aiden's reason for sending Sean to the northern border was truly just for a friendly reunion. Aiden admitted that while he trusted the regional commander there, he couldn't afford to take any chances with national security. The thought sparked another idea. He mentioned that they had never taken a trip together outside of D.C. He asked if his love was interested in a honeymoon. Leo looked surprised by the term. What was a honeymoon? Aiden put down his pen and patiently explained the concept. After understanding, Leo was astonished. This was the same Aiden who complained that the walk from the residence to the East Wing was too far, now proposing a long journey. He asked where Aiden wanted to go. Aiden had Sam bring in a large map of the United States and hang it on the wall. He stood, draping an arm over Leo's shoulder. He suggested the South, perhaps Charleston or Savannah. Leo replied that he had visited all those cities. Aiden then proposed New England, mentioning that the coastal towns would be beautiful in the fall. Leo had been there too. A bad feeling began to creep into Aiden's mind. He asked about heading west, toward the national parks. Leo revealed that at 16, he had spent 6 months with some classmates hiking through the Rockies. Aiden's mood soured slightly. He couldn't believe Leo had been everywhere, and always with other people. Leo remarked that it was natural for ambitious young men to explore, teasing that only Aiden enjoyed staying in one place. As he said it, a look of confusion crossed his own face. It was true. In his youth, he had traveled the world with his mentors, driven by a desire to learn and help others. Why was it that now, he had little interest in going anywhere, content to simply stay at home with Aiden? He glanced at his husband, a realization dawning. He blamed Aiden for making him lazy, Aiden laughed, asking how that could possibly be his fault. Leo grew serious, saying they couldn't continue like this. He declared that they were young and should be reading, traveling, and experiencing the world, not just indulging in romance within the White House walls. Aiden disagreed, pointing out that he was doing plenty of important work. Besides, he argued, youth was the only time for such indulgence. When they were old, they wouldn't have the energy. Leo replied, half-jokingly, that when Aiden got old, he could administer a few treatments to ensure he could still indulge. The thought was tempting, but Aiden's survival instinct kicked in. He politely declined, stating his preference for a longer life. They debated for a while, the conversation veering far from its original course, without reaching any conclusion. Hannah, Leo's aide, entered with a bowl of washed pears. She had voluntarily joined the White House staff after Leo's marriage, becoming his chief of staff. She and another of Leo's old friends had assumed Leo was forced into the marriage by the president, and Hannah had come to continue serving him. Aiden picked up a pear, tossing it in his hand. He proposed that since Leo had already seen all the great sights of America, they should let fate decide their honeymoon destination. Leo asked if he meant drawing lots. Something like that, Aiden confirmed. He asked Hannah to bring him a throwing dart and a silk tie. When she returned with the items, Aiden instructed Leo to throw the dart at the map while blindfolded. Whatever it hit, that's where they would go. Leo found the idea novel and intriguing. He asked what would happen if the dart landed on a place far from Washington. A presidential trip wasn't unheard of. Presidents had often traveled for diplomacy or campaigns. It was feasible for Aiden to be away for a few weeks, with the vice president and cabinet managing daily affairs, but a prolonged absence could invite instability. The country was vast. A trip from coast to coast could last months. Aiden assured him they could simply throw again. Leo allowed Aiden to tie the red silk over his eyes. His nose and slightly parted, reddened lips were visible below the blindfold, creating an unexpectedly intimate image. Aiden felt a stir of desire, remembering how the composed and cool Leo he presented to the world could become so passionate and unguarded in his arms. He leaned in and stole a quick kiss. Hannah froze for a second before Sam gently tugged her sleeve. She turned away, pretending not to have seen anything, and discreetly exited the room. Leo's long lashes, hidden by the silk, fluttered. He asked why Aiden had kissed him just then. Aiden just smiled, remarking that he often kissed him for no reason. He wondered if Leo wasn't used to it by now. After a moment's thought, Leo conceded that he was. Aiden guided Leo's hand, which now held the dart. "Throw," he whispered. The dart flew and landed with a soft thud. Leo removed the blindfold and saw where it had struck. A rural parish in southern Louisiana. The area was known for its swamplands, dense forests, and heavy, humid air. Not an ideal place for a long stay. Years ago, Sean, the intelligence chief, had hidden out in that very region after a controversial assassination to evade rival agencies. Aiden's eyes lit up with interest. "What a coincidence," he said. He explained that, in a way, Louisiana was his ancestral home. Leo was slightly taken aback. He had always assumed Aiden's family history was rooted in the Northeast, not somewhere on the Gulf Coast. Aiden clarified that his family had emigrated from there generations ago, moving to New York when he was a child, and he'd only returned south for college in New Orleans. New Orleans, Louisiana. Leo mentally filed the names away, remarking that he never imagined Aiden came from such a remote and undeveloped place. Remote? Undeveloped? Aiden was incredulous. Before he could defend his family's heritage, Sean arrived. He had come to bid them farewell before his departure for the Arizona mission. Leo saw an opportunity. He told Sean that since he had spent time in southern Louisiana, he should tell the president whether or not it was a desolate backwater. Sean looked at Aden and reported dutifully that the region was sparsely populated, with most residents living in isolated communities, a world away from the urban centers of the Northeast. Aden faltered, conceding that it might be a bit rugged now, but predicted that in 100 years, it would be one of the most prosperous regions in the country. He pointed at the map, explaining to Leo that its access to the Gulf of Mexico and proximity to international shipping lanes gave it immense potential once its ports were fully developed. Sean almost choked on the word love when Aden used it. He was now truly convinced of their friendship. Otherwise, the president wouldn't be so candid and informal in his presence. It wasn't surprising that Aden would call Leo love, but it was strange that Leo accepted it so naturally, without a hint of awkwardness. Aden, usually cheerful, grew wistful as he spoke of his heritage, a pang of nostalgia welling up. He confessed that he hadn't spoken the local dialect in years and feared he might have forgotten how. He turned to Sean, asking him how to say beautiful in Cajun French. Sean, ever serious, corrected him, saying it wasn't the right term, then uttered a few strange-sounding words. Aden didn't understand at all and just shrugged. Leo spoke quietly, a thoughtful look on his face. He wanted to see Aden's ancestral home. He was fascinated by the world that had shaped the man he loved. He wanted to understand the culture and the land that could produce someone like Aden. Aden hesitated, pointing out how far it was from D.C. No matter what Louisiana became in the future, it was currently considered remote, a place where disgraced politicians were sent to fade into obscurity. Leo conceded with a hint of regret. Just then, an aide from his mother's office arrived to summon them for dinner. Aden told Leo to go ahead so his mother wouldn't be kept waiting. He said he needed a few more words with Sean. Leo nodded and left. As he walked out of the West Wing, he noticed Hannah seemed distracted. He called her name. She snapped back to attention, asking for his instructions. Leo looked at her knowingly. He asked if she found it strange how close he and the president were, and if she wondered whether he had completely forgotten his past loves. Hannah lowered her head, murmuring that she wouldn't dare presume. But Leo could read her thoughts. She was torn between her belief in his loyalty and the undeniable evidence of his current happiness with Aden, a happiness that seemed to surpass anything he had before. He decided to give her a piece of the truth. He asked her gently if she didn't find the president's personality remarkably similar to the men he had known before. Hannah's eyes widened in astonishment. After a moment, she whispered, asking if Leo was using the president as a substitute for his past lovers. She glanced nervously back toward the Oval Office, her voice dropping even lower. "Does the president know?" Leo smiled faintly. "He knows," he said, "and he is more than happy to be their substitute." At dinner with the former First Lady, Aden arrived shortly after Leo. The meal was pleasant, served in the family dining room. A steamed sea bass was particularly delicious. Knowing Leo preferred lighter fare, Aden served him the most tender part of the fish, carefully removing the bones before placing it on his plate. Leo quietly thanked him and, in return, served Aden some fresh asparagus tips. Aden smiled, thanking his husband for the gesture. His mother watched the exchange with a strange feeling. It was good that the president and his husband were happy, but she found Aden's attentiveness to be excessive. It was almost as if Leo were the one in charge. After the meal, she dismissed Leo, saying she wished to speak with her son alone. Once Leo was gone, she spoke to Aden in a grave tone. She reminded him that he was the president and Leo his consort. The hierarchy of their roles, she insisted, superseded their marital bond. She asked if he understood what she meant by the fundamental order of things. Aiden smiled faintly. He understood perfectly. His mother was a product of her time. Her views were predictable. Arguing would be a waste of breath. He agreed verbally, knowing full well he would continue to do as he pleased. When Aiden returned to their quarters, Leo asked what his mother had said. Aiden was honest. She was bothered by him deboning fish for Leo and had implied he needed to maintain a more presidential, authoritative demeanor in their relationship. Leo smirked. He asked what the president intended to do about it. Stop serving him fish? Not a chance, Aiden replied seriously. He explained that since they were both men, their roles were fluid. Leo could be his husband, and he could be Leo's. Therefore, he owed him a love based on equality and respect. Leo wasn't sure if he should be moved. He knew Aiden too well. Whenever a moment became too sentimental, Aiden would inevitably say something to ruin the mood. Sure enough, before he could react, Aiden continued. He said his mother would never understand, and he couldn't be bothered to convince her. Instead, he proposed a better idea. He would teach Leo his ancestral dialect. That way, they could have encrypted conversations right in front of her. His eyes lit up with mischief. He asked if it wasn't a brilliant and fun idea. Leo just scoffed. In the end, they settled on a trip through the American South. It was a practical choice. New tax reforms were being implemented in the region, providing them with a perfect official reason to travel and gauge public opinion. Leo had intended to have the State Department organize the tour, but Aiden stopped him. A honeymoon was for two people. If they brought a huge entourage, it wouldn't be a honeymoon, it would be a guided tour. That said, as president and first gentleman, traveling completely alone was impossible. Even in the White House, they were constantly surrounded by staff and Secret Service. Aiden knew a private trip was unrealistic. The logistics of presidential travel were immensely complex. Ultimately, they decided to travel with a minimal team. Sam, Hannah, and a handful of elite, plain-clothed agents from Aiden's security detail heading south. It was March, a time of blossoming dogwoods and gentle spring rains, the perfect season to tour the South. Their convoy consisted of two black SUVs. Aiden and Leo rode in one, while the other was for their aides to use in rotation. The security detail followed discreetly in separate, unmarked vehicles. The drive from D.C. to their first stop in Virginia would take several hours, so their vehicle was equipped for comfort and entertainment. It was spacious enough for two grown men to stretch out, lined with plush leather seats. A small console held snacks and drinks, and a built-in shelving unit contained books, a chess set, and a few medical journals for Leo. Leo had planned to read to pass the time, but Aiden insisted on teaching him his family's dialect. He was a relentless teacher. Leo, blessed with a photographic memory, found it easy. Back in D.C., Aiden had already taught him to read and write a simplified version of his ancestral script. Now, he applied the same focus to the spoken language. By the time they were approaching Richmond, he could hold a simple conversation with Aiden in the dialect. Aiden urged him to repeat the phrase he had just taught him. Leo responded in a slow, perfect accent, "I really, really like you." Aiden was full of praise, marveling at his talent. His pronunciation was flawless. Anyone hearing him would assume he was a native speaker. Leo replied modestly that the president exaggerated. Was there anything in the world he didn't have a talent for? Aiden gave him a thumbs up, joking about how conceited he was. He declared that if Leo were to take the SATs in his world, he would undoubtedly get a perfect score. Leo humbly dismissed it as a minor skill. Aiden dramatically picked up a nearby violin case, announcing he had no choice but to play a song for him, titled It's So Lonely at the top. After his playful outburst, Aiden grew sleepy, and Leo mercifully offered his lap as a pillow. When Aiden woke, it was late afternoon. Leo was still in the same position, a black chess piece held between his fingers, playing a game against himself. The setting sun cast a golden glow over him, making his features seem to radiate light. Dressed in a sky blue sweater that day, he looked like a priceless porcelain statue as he contemplated the board. Aiden watched him for a long time, a warmth spreading through his chest. Leo sensed his quickened breathing and looked down. "You're awake?" he asked. Aiden nodded. Leo touched Aiden's cheek with the back of his hand and asked if he was thirsty. Aiden caught his wrist, his eyes dark with desire as he whispered Leo's name, his voice low and suggestive. "I'm thinking about, after so much time together, they had a deep, unspoken understanding." One look was all it took for Leo to know what Aiden was thinking. He could faintly hear Sam and Hannah talking outside the vehicle. His gaze was clear and sharp. "Stop it," he said firmly. "We're in a car. You're not allowed to think about it." Aiden chuckled. "Really? I can't even think about it? I'm not going to do anything." Leo retorted with a dry smile, asking if he was about to try his mental seduction routine again. Aiden's eyes lit up. "Oh, right, I almost forgot I had that skill." He leaned back, closing his eyes as he narrated in a low voice, "I hear only the soft rustle of fabric as I lift the hem of your shirt. Then you feel a slight chill as my palm finds its way inside, resting on the soft skin of your stomach. As our lips meet, my hand begins to move in slow circles." Leo put a hand to his forehead. "Your literary talents are wasted, Mr. President. You should be writing romance novels." Aiden's lips curved. "Did it work?" Leo played along. "3 times already." Aiden boasted, "Well, I got there 5 times. Leo fell silent. He resolved to be more descriptive next time. Upon arriving in Richmond, they spent a day exploring the city with Sam and Hannah. The southern markets, though less bustling than D.C.'s, had their own charm. Willow trees swayed in the breeze, and street vendors called out in the soft drawl of the region. Leo and Aiden were dressed as ordinary, wealthy young men. Leo, in a tailored coat and scarf, looked like a scholar from an old money family, drawing countless admiring glances. Aiden, with a pair of designer sunglasses, played the part of a dashing, carefree artist. He asked Leo if there was anywhere specific he wanted to go. Leo mentioned that the city's largest historical apothecary, known as the Southern Medical Archives, was a place he wished to see. "Done," Aiden said. He turned to call for Sam, but found his aide captivated by the window of a luxury perfume shop. He teased him, asking if he was buying himself a new cologne. Sam snapped out of his trance, explaining that he wanted to buy a souvenir for his younger sister back home. Hannah asked what made Richmond's perfumes different from those in D.C. Leo, ever practical, suggested they go inside and find out. Sam was flustered, insisting they shouldn't delay the president and first gentleman's plans for his sake. But Leo waved it off, saying they were on a leisurely tour. There was nothing to delay. The shop owner was adept at reading people. She saw Aiden and Leo and immediately recognized them as important, though she didn't know exactly who they were. She greeted them with a practiced smile, asking if they were looking for fragrances. She launched into her sales pitch, boasting that her shop carried the finest perfumes in all of Virginia, praised even by Washington's elite. Aiden gestured with his sunglasses toward Sam. "He's the one shopping, not us. You can help him." The owner's smile faltered slightly as she sized up Sam. She asked what he was looking for. Sam, unfamiliar with such products, scratched his head and said he had a budget of about $200. As the president's personal aide, Sam was well paid, but he had grown up frugally, and spending that much on perfume felt like a major indulgence. The owner, hearing the amount, knew he was inexperienced. $200 won't get you much of quality here, she said coolly. But if you could add another $50, you might be able to afford a small bottle of our signature scent. Sam looked embarrassed, explaining that the rest of his cash was back in the car. Just as Leo was about to cover the difference, Aiden stopped him. He raised an eyebrow at the owner. $200 won't buy a good perfume? The owner felt a prickle of unease. The man's confident air was that of someone accustomed to immense power, not someone who would know the price of perfume. That's right, she said, holding her ground. You get what you pay for. Our products aren't like the cheap things you find elsewhere. Aiden had noticed another perfume shop across the street called Aroma. He smiled. Well, if we don't have enough cash, I guess we'll have to come back another time. The owner tried to persuade them to stay, but they left decisively. She watched in frustration as they walked into her rival store across the street. For her, watching her competitor make a sale was worse than losing money herself. Outside, Sam said they should just go to the apothecary. Aiden told him not to be silly. They came all this way, he should get something. He assured Sam not to listen to the other owner. $200 was more than enough. He pulled his aide aside and whispered a few instructions. Go on in, he said. We'll wait out here. And buy a bottle for me too, the most intense one they have. Leo looked at him suspiciously, asking what he was up to now. Aiden put on an innocent face. It's a gift for my mother's chief of staff. Sam entered Aroma and announced to the new shopkeeper. The owner across the street said you can't buy any decent perfume in this city for under $250. She dared me to prove her wrong. The second owner, hearing this, was instantly incensed. What an ignoramus, she scoffed. She's a disgrace to this city. Sir, rest assured, for less than $100 you can buy the finest perfume in all of Virginia right here. With Sam happily laden with purchases, the group continued toward the apothecary. The city was a hub of history and academia, having produced many of the nation's founding fathers. The streets were lined with bookstores and art galleries. Aiden had little interest in historical artifacts. If he wanted them, the National Archives were at his disposal. He picked up a few paperback thrillers to read on the road, then had Sam and Hannah take their bags to the hotel where they would be staying. Leo spent a long time at the apothecary, speaking with the pharmacists, interns, and clerks. He even prescribed a remedy for a customer suffering from a persistent cough, introducing himself as a medical researcher on a study tour. His expertise and striking appearance earned him immediate respect. They spent the entire day exploring, and by the time they returned to the hotel that evening, even Leo felt a touch of weariness. They showered and went to bed early, too tired even for their usual playful banter. The next morning, Aiden instinctively reached for Leo but found the other side of the bed empty. He cracked open an eye and saw Leo, fully dressed, sitting before a mirror and tying back his hair. Aiden opened both eyes. "What are you doing?" he asked. Leo informed him that he planned to visit the nearby Appalachian Mountains. An intern at the apothecary had told him that the deep woods held several unique medicinal plants, and he wanted to try his luck. Aiden was incredulous. "So, we're going out again today?" Leo looked at him, confused. "Of course. We're here to explore." Aiden's voice was weak. "I thought we'd rest at the hotel today." Leo was baffled. If he wanted to rest in a room, why leave D.C.? Wasn't the White House more comfortable? Aiden had no rebuttal. He flopped back onto the pillows. "We must have walked 15 miles yesterday." My legs are killing me. And now you want me to climb a mountain? You're trying to kill me. He explained that his idea of a honeymoon was relaxing on a beach, with their daily activity limited to a short stroll of no more than 1,000 steps. Leo mercilessly shattered his dream. There are no oceans in Central Virginia. Aiden whined that a lake would be fine. He wasn't picky. Leo sighed. Then you should stay at the hotel and rest. Aiden frowned. But I want to be with you. Seeing Aiden's turmoil, Leo felt a pang of his own. He also wanted to be with Aiden every moment. But Aiden looked so exhausted, like another long walk would break him. Forcing him to go hiking felt cruel. After a moment of thought, Leo tried a different tactic. I want to be with my husband, too, he said, his voice soft. He feigned confusion at Aiden's surprised expression. Aiden's throat went dry. That's cheating, he mumbled. Leo's lips curved into a slight smile. So, does my husband have the energy to walk now? Aiden took a deep breath, assessing his physical state. I think I do now, he said with a resigned sigh. After getting ready, Hannah and Sam brought breakfast to their suite. The southern breakfast was simple but delicious. Grits, buttermilk biscuits with sausage gravy, and sweet iced tea, although they could get similar dishes in D.C. These had an authentic, comforting quality. Hannah seemed tired, stifling a yawn. Aiden asked if she wasn't sleeping well in the hotel. She immediately looked apologetic, saying she was sorry for her unprofessional behavior. But Leo waved it off, telling her to relax. They were supposed to be acting like normal people on this trip. Sam chuckled, revealing that Hannah had been up half the night reading one of the novels Aiden had bought. Hannah's face flushed. Sam, she protested. Aiden laughed. What book could be so captivating? Let me see. Hannah, embarrassed, mumbled the title, The Duke's Passionate Wife. Aiden burst out laughing, teasing her for reading romance novels. Leo asked where she had gotten such a book. She admitted quietly that it was one of the paperbacks Aiden had purchased the day before. Leo shot Aiden a look. Aiden feigned innocence, claiming he had just grabbed a few random books to pass the time. Leo saw right through him. Somehow, I think these are exactly the kinds of books you like to read. Aiden denied it, but Leo cut him off with a single, damning question. Then why did I find you reading Pride and Prejudice last week? After breakfast, they set off for the mountains. The SUV could only take them to the trailhead. From there, they had to walk. The trail was known for its steep inclines and waterfalls. The forest was dense and misty, a place where an inexperienced hiker could easily get lost. The apothecary had recommended a local guide, a mountain man who had lived in the area his whole life. Though in his 60s, he was still vigorous but had a reputation for being eccentric. After an hour of hiking, the guide was still moving at a brisk pace. Leo walked alongside him, discussing the area's rare herbs. Behind them, Aiden called out, Leo, we've been walking for an hour. Let's take a break. Leo turned to look at him. Aiden's breathing was even. He was clearly not tired, just looking for an excuse to stop. I have a few places I need to get to before dark, Leo said. We can't afford to waste time. He lowered his voice. I could have one of the agents carry you. Aiden winced. Never mind. I can't handle the embarrassment. The guide glanced back at Aiden, shook his head, and continued onward. The higher they climbed, the colder it got. Soon, a light rain began to fall. Sam was prepared with raincoats. Aiden took one but said he and Leo would share a large umbrella. He told Sam to make sure Hannah was covered. Under the umbrella, Aiden could finally keep pace with Leo and the guide. Leo, who had been focused on the hike, now found himself distracted by Aiden's proximity. The rain pattered on the umbrella, and the air smelled of damp earth. Yet all he could notice was the clean, warm scent of his husband. After another half-hour, the sound of rushing water grew louder. They came upon a massive waterfall cascading down a cliff face, which acted as a natural barrier, blocking their path. Sam gasped, "It's beautiful." Aidan quoted, "Its torrent dashes down 3,000 feet from high, as if the silver river fell from azure sky." The ancient poetry, he noted, wasn't an exaggeration. The guide squinted at the opposite cliff and suddenly shouted, "Glasswort!" Leo's eyes lit up. "Where?" The guide pointed across the ravine. Amid the mist, it was hard to see clearly. Leo walked to the very edge of the precipice and finally spotted a single, small plant growing from a crevice. He confirmed it was indeed the rare glasswort. Aidan grabbed his arm. "What's glasswort?" he asked. Leo explained that it was an herb unique to these mountains, thriving in damp, cliffside environments. It was incredibly valuable. Dried and used in medicine, it could treat a rare congenital heart condition. Aidan asked how valuable it was. Leo's voice grew cool. "Even the National Institutes of Health only have 2 specimens. And last year, a senator requisitioned both for a family member." The guide grumbled that they were lucky to see it on their first trip. He hadn't seen one in 2 years. Aidan looked at the small plant on the distant cliff. "Do you want it?" he asked Leo. Leo nodded. "Very much." But it was growing on a sheer cliff, and with the rain, attempting to retrieve it would be incredibly dangerous. "So what?" Aidan said with a theatrical flourish. "If my husband wants something, I would climb the highest mountain, swim the deepest ocean, even risk my life to get it for him." Leo's heart sank. "Just stop talking," he said coldly. Hannah was reminded of a scene from the romance novel she'd been reading, where the Duke risks his life to pick a wildflower for his wife from a cliff's edge. She had been so moved by the fictional display of devotion. And now, here was the president, just as devoted to his husband. No wonder he was willing to be a substitute for others. For the leader of the free world to be so selfless, it was incredibly moving. As Hannah was lost in her romantic thoughts, the president's tone shifted. "You guys didn't think I would actually say that, did you?" Hannah blinked. Aidan assessed the cliff's height and the distance, concluding the risk was far too great. He could order an agent to try, but the slick rocks made it treacherous even for the most skilled climber. Their lives were more important. "Darling, listen to me," he said gently to Leo. "It's too dangerous. Let's leave it." Hannah stood frozen. Leo, however, broke into a smile. "All right, we'll leave it." The guide looked aghast. He couldn't believe they would pass up such a treasure, reminding them that the herb's harvesting window was only a few days. He asked if they knew how much a single plant was worth. As their guide, he was entitled to a cut. "We don't need the money," Aidan said flatly. The guide became agitated, muttering about how young people these days were so afraid of death. Sam's expression darkened. "Insolent," he snapped. "Do you know who you're speaking to?" Aidan stopped him with a calm smile. "It's fine, Sam. The man isn't wrong. I am quite afraid of dying." The guide stomped his foot in frustration. "If you don't want it, I'll get it myself," he declared, turning to find help. Aidan's voice was quiet but firm. "I'd advise you to reconsider." Leo smiled to himself. He knew that the old Aidan, the one he first met, had a death wish. But after everything they had been through, Aidan now cherished his life more than anything. He wouldn't take even the slightest risk. It was a good thing. He wanted Aidan to always be cautious, to always be afraid of dying. Although they missed out on the glasswort, Leo still managed to collect many other valuable herbs. By the time they descended, his basket was full. The next day, He heard from the apothecary's staff that the guide had returned to the mountain with help, only to find the glasswort had been washed away by the rain and had withered. The old man was so distraught he fell ill. Leo felt a pang of regret but didn't dwell on it. For the next few days, he continued to meet with local medical experts, while Aidan met with the governor of Virginia to discuss the implementation of the new tax policies. After 5 days, they continued their journey south. The drive to their next destination took a full day. In the SUV, Leo was cross-referencing a botanical encyclopedia with the plants he had collected. When he reached the page for glasswort, his fingers paused as he remembered the one they had missed. He turned the page, and there, pressed between the leaves, was a perfectly dried specimen of the rare herb. He froze, then looked up at Aidan. The president was lounging on the seat across from him, deeply engrossed in the Duke's passionate wife. Sensing Leo's gaze, Aidan looked up and asked innocently, "What's wrong?" Leo demanded to know how he had gotten it. The plant on the cliff had withered. Where did this one come from? Aidan propped his head on his hand, a playful smile on his face. "What are you talking about, my love? I have no idea." Leo realized then that Aidan loved creating these small, unexpected surprises for him. It was like the wedding rings he thought would take weeks to make, which appeared on his finger the very next day. It was like the impossible-to-get herb now suddenly in his hands. They were simple things, but they always filled him with a profound sense of joy. He loved Aidan so much. To spend his life with such a wonderful, intriguing soul was the greatest fortune he could imagine. A warmth spread through his chest, his whole body growing hot. He didn't waste any more words. He opened the partition to the driver's cabin. "Sam," he said. The aide's voice came through the intercom. "Yes, Mr. Vance? Find a secluded spot and pull over," Leo instructed. "And then have everyone, including the security detail, turn their backs to the vehicle and maintain a half-mile perimeter." Sam was bewildered by the strange command, but he complied without question. Aidan watched, a knowing look on his face. "Leo, you're not planning to..." Leo let out a soft laugh. "Just thinking about it is no fun at all." The presidential convoy remained stationary on a quiet country road, the engines idling. Suddenly, Aidan produced a small, elegant compact of rouge. Leo, his lips slightly parted, watched as Aidan dipped a finger into the vibrant red pigment and began to apply it to his mouth. Aidan wasn't skilled at it, and the color smudged slightly at the corners of Leo's lips, creating a hazy, decadent effect. Aidan stared at him for a long moment, unmoving. Leo breathed his name, "Aidan." Aidan pulled him close, his voice almost a sigh. "Leo, how is it possible for you to look like this?" He whispered. "Do you have any idea how beautiful you are?" Then, as if he could hold back no longer, he closed his eyes and kissed him. Leo's eyes remained open. He saw Aidan's lashes, damp with perspiration. When they finally broke apart, a smudge of the rouge was on Aidan's own lips, which, combined with his intense gaze, made him look even more captivating than the day they first met. Leo raised a hand and traced the outline of Aidan's mouth. "Well," he murmured, his voice husky, "aren't you going to continue?" Sam and the agents waited for nearly 2 hours before the president summoned them to proceed. By then, night had fallen. Aidan instructed Sam to build a fire, heat some water, and prepare food. They would be camping out for the night. Sam protested, pointing out that sleeping in an SUV was hardly as comfortable as a hotel bed. Why not push on to the next town? Aidan just smiled. "You don't understand, Sam. This is atmosphere." Once the water was hot, Aidan carried it to their SUV himself. The agents had hunted a few rabbits, and with the supplies they had, A simple dinner was quickly prepared. After the meal, Aiden helped Leo out of the vehicle. The first gentleman was the picture of calm composure, despite the fact that he was thoroughly scented with another man. The campfire roasted rabbit couldn't compare to the food at the White House, but Leo found it delicious. He was truly hungry. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the shadows, one of the agents. They were under strict orders to remain hidden unless their principals were in danger. "What is it?" Aiden asked. The agent held up something he had captured and knelt before them. He reported that a snake had been coiled in a tree just above them. Leo peered at it in the firelight. "It's cute," he said. The agent paused, unsure how to treat the venomous-looking creature. Leo added, with a hint of disappointment, "Unfortunately, it's not poisonous." After a moment, he sighed. "Mr. President, I miss our little viper." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "Should we head back to D.C. now?" Leo answered with perfect composure. "No, the vacation is more important." Aiden chuckled. "What cruel parents we are, abandoning our child for a bit of fun." They spent the entire spring touring the South, followed by a summer retreat at Camp David. By the time they returned to the White House, it was early fall. Awaiting Aiden was a mountain of paperwork. The joy of his vacation was directly proportional to the misery of his return. For the entire fall and winter, he barely slept more than 3 hours a night. When the holidays finally arrived, he could at last put aside matters of state, only to be confronted with family obligations. Relatives from across the country arrived for a series of holiday dinners at the White House. Thankfully, his mother handled most of the arrangements, leaving Aiden to simply show up with Leo and play the part of the happy couple. In previous years, the wives of cabinet members and other dignitaries would visit the White House to pay their respects to the First Lady. This year, with a man in the role, the protocols had changed. Leo had little interest in such formalities and had waived the tradition. The only family he was expected to formally receive was his own. His younger brother, now a teenager, had grown into a handsome young man. He was more interested in politics than medicine and was currently away at a prestigious boarding school, rarely coming home. Leo, seeing him so infrequently, invited him to stay at the White House for a few days. On the night of the New Year's Eve celebration, Leo was supposed to be overseeing the festivities. But his pet viper, the one that had hatched from the eggs and been named Aiden Jr. by the president, had fallen ill. It was curled into a ball, shivering. Leo was worried sick and stayed by its side, refusing to leave. He managed to administer a special broth, and the snake finally showed some signs of life, its tongue flicking out as it slowly slithered toward a fresh piece of meat. Leo felt a wave of relief. Just then, Hannah came to inform him that his brother had arrived, accompanied by the young son of a distant cousin of Aiden's. The boy, named Dylan, was only 5 or 6 and was visiting D.C. for the first time. Leo asked why they were together. Hannah explained that his brother had met the boy in the rose garden and, charmed by his lively personality, had decided to show him around. Leo told her to have them wait in the main sitting room. After settling the viper, Leo went to greet them. His brother was holding Dylan's hand. The little boy was looking around with wide, curious eyes. He politely greeted Leo, and Dylan followed suit, his formal bow surprisingly graceful for a child his age. Leo's brother explained that Dylan had heard about Leo's blue snake and had begged to see it. Leo was surprised. "You're not afraid of snakes?" he asked the boy. Dylan beamed. "No, sir. Snakes are so cute." Leo smiled faintly. "In that case, follow me." He didn't let the child get too close, but Dylan was thrilled just to see the snake from a distance, exclaiming over how beautiful it was. His brother explained to the boy that the snake was from a faraway land and that its name was Aiden Jr. Dylan looked puzzled. But why does it have the president's name? He asked. His brother didn't have an answer. As Leo watched the two of them, the older boy patiently explaining things to the younger, an idea began to form in his mind. Later that evening, after hosting a small reception, the New Year's fireworks began. Aiden and Leo, dressed in formal wear, stood on the Truman balcony, looking out over the illuminated Capitol. Aiden's mother had retired early. Once she was gone, they were free to be themselves. Leo idly watched the explosions of light. "Mr. President," he said, "have you ever considered the issue of an heir?" Aiden looked at him. "You say that as if you have someone in mind." Not exactly, Leo admitted, but he thought it was something they should start thinking about. Aiden smiled. "We can. But there's no rush. We have plenty of time." Leo smiled back. In the distance, lanterns of light floated up, illuminating the night sky. Plenty of time, and the present moment was perfect. "Aiden." "Yes?" Leo's eyes reflected the fireworks. "Happy 4th anniversary." Aiden paused, looking at his husband's profile against the bright night. "Happy anniversary," he said, his own smile widening. "Here's to another year. And next year, at this same time, you have to love me even more than you do now." Is that a deal? Could he possibly love him more? He already loved him so much. "That," Leo said, a playful glint in his eye, "depends on your performance." Aiden chuckled softly. "I'll do my best."